Welcome to Brookline Booksmith's author event series. A few housekeeping notes. Thank you for keeping your phones on silent. If you'd like to buy a book, we have them for sale in the back, and we'll have time for Q&A. So get your questions ready. We're here tonight for an evening of poetry with the Airea D as she shares work from her latest collection, Bread and Circus. Airea is Philadelphia's current poet laureate. Her first collection of poems is the critically acclaimed Simulacra, which won the 2016 Yale Series of Younger Poets Award. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, Gulf Coast, VQR, Best American Poets, American Poet, Lit Hub, Harvard Review, and many other places. Matthews holds a BA in economics from the University of Pennsylvania, as well as an MFA from the Helen Zell Writers Program and an MPA from the Gerald Ford School of Public Policy, both at the University of Michigan. A Pew Fellow, she is a professor and directs the poetry program at Bryn Mawr College. Welcome, Airea D. And I'll tell you a little bit about the book. Tell folks. So Bread and Circus. It's a powerful collection of autobiographical poems about the economics of class and its failures for those rendered invisible by it. As a former student of economics, Matthews was fascinated and disturbed by 18th century Scottish economist Adam Smith in his magnum opus, The Wealth of Nations. Bread and Circus is a direct challenge to Smith's theory of the invisible hand, which claims self-interest is the key to optimal economic outcomes. By juxtaposing redacted texts by Smith and the French Marxist G. Debord with autobiographical prose and poems, Bread and Circus demonstrates that self-interest fails when people become commodities themselves, and shows how the most vulnerable, including the author and her family, have been impacted by that failure. A layered collection to be read and reread, with poems that range from tragic to humorous, in forms as varied and nuanced as the ideas the book considers. Bread and Circus explores the area where theory and reality meet. It's an honor to introduce the poet, Airea D.
Thank you, Silas. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I really appreciate your presence. I came here tonight and I thought I would read almost entirely from Bread and Circus, but then it occurred to me, and I haven't heard people talk about this. I mean, I'm a poet. You don't really hear people talk about poetry that much on the streets, you know what I mean? But just the fact that the relationship of the two books, and so both of the books are weaving a story, and they're trying to talk about a singular origin point, and what they're doing is you've got these vast rays shooting out from this single origin point, and it's trying to consider them in different ways. So whereas Simulacra was very much an anti-confessional, I was trying to move against kind of the trend of confessionalism that started by people like Black and Sexton, and move toward something that is so shrouded, it's obfuscated, it's an obfuscated truth. And then I decided that it might be another challenge as a poet and as a writer to move against my first instinct in the first book. And so I have these two books in conversation, where one is an anti-confessional and one is strictly a confessional. So you're gonna hear me read from both of them. And I just kind of want to talk about Smith and Guy Debord, why I've brought these two theorists in in conversation together. We often talk about theory, and I have a theory about theory. Theory is kind of are these pie-in-the-sky ideas that people who don't have to necessarily suffer the consequences of them. And so I tried to think about things as related to The Wealth of Nations. I was an econ student, and we talk about theory. We also talk about math and graphs and all that good stuff. And it occurred to me that whenever we were talking about Adam Smith, we were talking about ideas of self-interest. And self-interest as a driving force in an economy leads to what Guy Debord talked about in 1967 in the Society of the Spectacle. It leads to the spectacle. Something about self-interest, when people only consider themselves, only consider their own needs, it leads to this kind of debauched state where eventually the only thing that matters is yourself. And so I wanted to talk about that toward the latter part of the book and think about it in kind of this tech age that we live in, where we comply willingly, willfully, to being a spectacle. We become a part of the system that actually serves to destroy us willingly. So we talk about that a little bit, but that's all a part of commodity. I'm going to start at the beginning because it seems like a good place to start. Legacy costs. And then there are those who, in the words of artist Mendel Black, inherit rebellion. Large lots of unbeing passed one generation to the next. Absent value on the free market, nothing gets resolved. Too many other worries and when, where of basic living. Elegant names are expensive. It costs too much to be pronounced. Nobler yet to forbear the weight of obscurity. Put on the full armor of mundane gods who war against their heirs, wasting away among brothers, fattened from lamb. The troubles. Many years ago, Nikki Finney was one of my teachers at an organization called Cave Canem, and she talked about when you're thinking about writing the narrative, how to map out time. So you want to think about the global, what was happening globally at the time that you're writing about, what was happening locally at the time that you're writing about, and what was happening personally at the time that you were writing about. So if you've ever heard Bono, U2, Sunday, Bloody Sunday, he was talking about the Troubles in Ireland. The Troubles. Man watches his history on the screen with apathy and an occasional passing flicker of horror or indignation. Connor Cruz O'Brien, Irish historian. It's 1972, and inside, Ma's television buzzes. Oddly accented men wearing crucifixes call for work and housing. Children's coattails drag along the seats of burnt-out cars, walling in their free dairy. Tanks thrum through the rubble thrown, stones ricochet off umbrella shields, bullets plunge into some husband's flesh like rose thorns burrowing chest deep. A priest waves a handkerchief as flag of surrender, begging passage for the shallow breath whose blood slicks his boot. Unknowns will die cradled in the arms of strangers who moments earlier sang, "We shall overcome someday," faithfully clinging to the same distant hope that finds Ma thousands of miles away, on a different continent, wailing on her bedroom floor, arms flailed across her belly, mourning an unwanted whose spine swims against her backbone's curve, holding vigil for blood that will not come, and me, who surely will. Heron. This is a testament to language. So when I was a kid, I heard the word heron. I thought it was a bird. Heron. I thought it was a bird. Skimmed rush, hush as before a fowl fixes its head up from shallow water, sickened by its own nature. Narcissus reversed. Unfortunate predatory consequence, the luck. Heron spots two ducklings nesting on an outcrop of rocks. Swift like, Heron bounces off the lake, a hollowed pebble. In one swallow, babes go down, pulsing inside Heron's throat until they succumb. Mama mallard squawks and plods, helpless. She flies low away. How long do mother ducks mourn? Until the next day, next month, until pitch pines shake barren or a naked beggar shakes on his kitchen floor like Brescia in a rain stick begging 2 bird bags, 4 quarters, 1 gram. His daughter's empty cupboards offer open tin at his feet. Eat, eat, until Heron comes, when sick, foul fit in veins like ducks in necks, vortex of sorts. Some knew this, yet none bothered to explain how Heron made him fly, why Heron made him, well, less starved. Severance. 200 years after Franklin signed the Declaration of Independence, Amtrak purchased the crumbling stone viaducts and decrepit bridges between Boston and Washington. In 5 years, the federal government would surface 245 miles of track, lay 171,000 ties, renew 2,868 joints, interlock 5,800 switch timbers, and order 492 Amfleet cars, including 16 sleek metro liners, like one of the two housed at Trenton Rail Station, where the authorities found my father in stuporous nod while on the official clock. Having decided several offers of rehab enough, Amtrak severed all contractual encumbrances. It was 1977, when my father stumbled from that station into a recession, but first into Pete Lorenzo's bar, to pilfer time through a bottle, then plot provision, 3 square, 4 souls, strategizing who to feed, to whom. I'm going to introduce my son to come up. We're going to read a poem together. So I've got these, I like to call them polyvocal extractions of Wealth of Nations. And so there's the original text from the Wealth of Nations, and then there's the highlighted text, which is my understood interpretation of that section. So we're going to start on Smith on Exchange. Should be 1 in your book.
Man sometimes uses the same arts with his brethren, and when he has no other means of engaging them to act according to his inclinations, endeavors by every servile and fawning attention to obtain their goodwill. He has not time, however, to do this upon every occasion. In civilized society, he stands at all times in need of the cooperation and assistance of great multitudes, while his whole life is scarce sufficient to gain the friendship of a few persons. In almost every other race of animals, each individual, when it is grown up to its maturity, is entirely independent.
Give me that which I want,
and in its natural state,
and you shall have
has occasion for the
this
assistance
which
of
you
no
want.
other living creature.
Swindle. Learn the suits, Ace. A club looks like a 3-leaf clover. A spade is an upside-down heart. A diamond looks like 2 kissing triangles. A heart is a goddamn heart. A hand is 5 cards, 1 card each finger. The ace is the highest, followed by head cards. King, queen, jack, then count back by 10. That's the rank. You get what I'm giving? Bring a Barbie doll, something to play with. Circle the players from afar. Your sneaky Uncle Nate. Nigga tucks cards under his cuff. Pull on his sleeve. Ask for a hug. If it feels stiff, say, you're thirsty. Don't crawl under that table unless you want a gun in my mouth. Don't sniff the powder on the felt, and boy, don't touch those chips. They worth more than the both of us. You see what I'm saying? Aim for loose play. Every motherfucker's hungry. When the game is tight, stakes get too fat too quick. You'll lose before the draw. Spy those hands, Ace. Tell me what you see. Scratch your chin, rub your nose, pull on your ear. We got a code. Eat. Thing is, that ace is tricky. Hinges on what's held. It can play high or low. A full house ain't shit. Bend the straight. Fuck a pair. Fear that flush. You see those head cards in order with the same suit, grab your baby doll, go to the bathroom, flush the toilet twice, stick 1 finger down your throat, bloat your cheek, run out, force lunch on the table, say, Daddy, my head hurts. We make dust, baby boy, only lose what little you left. On origin and use.
When the division of labor has been once thoroughly established, it is but a very small part of a man's wants which the produce of his own labor can supply. He supplies the far greater part of them by exchanging that surplus part of the produce
a certain commodity,
labor, which is over and above his own
the latter,
consumption, for such
the
parts
former,
of the produce of other men's
the meat,
labor as he has occasion
brewer,
for. Every
the baker,
man grows
butcher,
to be what is
the
properly
bread,
a commercial
the
society.
cattle, the armor. O ox, O salt, Oh, sugar. Oh, water. Oh, leather. Oh, nail. Oh, ale. Oh, sheep. Ars Poetica, 1979. Digging in dregs of trash to find the bird my father needed to get well, I tore a vanishing line across the length of my palm. My hand emerged slowly, crown of pulp pulsing. My excommunicated ex-Navy father, come here, boy. Though I was a girl, he called me boy because he wanted one. He pressed his dirty fingernail against the head of the valley, dispensing some trauma he picked up in Vietnam about dead bodies not being able to feel and pain being the only true way to know aliveness. How pleasure persuades belief in a heaven that doesn't exist and that he could prove God was fiction and Satan the realest motherfucker ever made. Look around. He lifted the index, the one staunching the flow to his lip, tasted my iron. I let out something, more moan than wail, too shaken for much else when he grabbed the back of my neck, pulled me close to teach his only lesson worth remembering. Cry, boy. Look that honest wound in the eye, and you better let this mutilated world see what she did to you. I grew up in the 80s during Reaganomics. Anybody from here from the 80s can remember Reaganomics? It's a hell of a time. Working Class Bedtime Story, 1981. Every morning, 2 hours after the gate closed on her night shift, a gowned woman wiped oil from ladder rungs, sharpened 2 hatchets with a dull whetstone, and steadily climbed through troposphere to reach the far edge of her roof. Positioned just so, legs in kenabo, arms dual wielding, she'd cut the sun from its cosmic string, watch it gyrate in midair, light dumped down nowhere easy. Taking swing after swing until the axe head flew and sun dimmed and fell through that roof onto a parlor floor where that woman collapsed, sheerly done in, while her curious young'un, with a feral stare, sat silent in the dark corner chair, picking flint flakes of ash from her nappy-ass hair. Etymology. Because my mother named me after a child born still to a godmother I'd never met, I took another way to be known, something easier to remember, inevitable to forget, something that rolls over the surface of thrush, because I grew tired of saying, no, it's pronounced. Now I tire of not conjuring that ghost I honor. Say it with me. Era. Rhymes with Sarah. Sarah from the Latin meaning a woman of high rank, which also means whenever I ask anyone to hold me on their lips, I sound like what I almost am. Hear me out. I'm not a D or a river charging through working class towns where union folk cobwedge for plots and barely any house at all, where bosses mangle ethnic phonemes and nobody corrects one word because the check's in the mail. So let's end this classist pretense where names don't matter and language is too heavy a lift. My E is silent, like most people should be. The consonant is sonorant, is a black woman, or one might say, the spine. I translate to wind in a country known for its iron, imply lioness of God in Jesus' tongue, mean apex predator, free of known enemy, fierce enough to harm, or fast enough to run. All I'm saying is what I've already said. The tongue has no wings to flee what syllables it fears. The mouth is no womb, has no right to consume what it did not make. On mobility.
The whole value of the C, too, is properly a fixed capital. Though it goes backwards and forwards between the ground and granary, it never changes masters, and therefore does not properly circulate.
The C,
The famer makes his profit
changes
not by its
masters.
sale, but by its increase.
By its increase.
The general stock of any country or society is the same
And
as
consists
that of all its inhabitants or members,
of fine
and
food,
therefore naturally divides itself
dwelling
into
houses,
the same 3 portions,
furniture,
each of which has a distinct function
stock,
or office. The
capital,
first is that portion which is reserved
dresses,
for immediate consumption,
and many
of which
people,
the characteristic is
but
that
it's
it
still
affords no revenue or profits.
most slowly consumed. Kafkaesque. The real hero in the metamorphosis was Greta, Gregor's sister, who found a way to avoid the snares. Who wants to deliver spoiled milk to a roach every morning? Right now, there's a mouse in my kitchen. I've set down poison, but he's too wise. Whatever he wants, he'll substitute. He can wait for his French Revolution, the guillotine tomorrow, or maybe there's enough to form a union, or maybe they decided when their Hoffa disappeared they didn't want any more smoke. I figure I'm the FBI to Stuart Little's mafia. They know when I'm trying to frame them. They slink around those traps, fine cheese, laughable. Get thick on Kool-Aid crystals sunken into the grout, prefer what's sweet to what's savory. They know what they want. Smarter than most. See, my desires fleet, but I'll Pavlov dog it every time. Ring the bell, give me a shock. Ring the bell, give me a scrap. Ring the bell, I'll stink bug it. We'll fly to a new wall to meet the same end, crushed by habit, but let's not delve into the mechanics of what's slowly killing me. Today, I'm trying to end this pestilence, and these pests, at least, know not to fall for the same trap twice. American Ouroboros. So this is a contrapuntal, which is basically a poem that's got 3 parts to it. There's the right panel, which reads one way, there's the left panel, reads another way, and then you read them together and you get a totally different meaning. American Ouroboros. I've been an imaginary, Amanda gone wrong, even been a star-draped snake fetting the spectacle, as freedom unravels, and who speaks of this country driven to every brink, inherent in rhetorical stutter? Such suffering portends patriots who liquor a hearth fire as their brothers strike a match. I've been an imaginary and a mascot unmasked, consuming my own tale in rituals of self-worship. The pornotrope prances, slithering as the American way, wheeled by certain cognitive error and ego-steepled needs. Grave danger ever awaits renegades who gather for warmth in a house swiftly filling with gas. I've been an imaginary, Amanda gone wrong, and a mascot unmasked, even been a star-draped snake, consuming my own tail, fetting the spectacle and rituals of self-worship as freedom unravels, the pornotrope prances, and who speaks of this country slithering as the American way, driven to every brink, wheeled by certain cognitive error inherent in rhetorical stutter and ego-steepled needs. Such suffering portends, grave danger ever awaits patriots who liquor a hearth fire and renegades who gather for warmth as their brothers strike a match in a house swiftly filling with gas. Logical disjunction. Either the queen is dead or she crowns your hand. Either your fathers were kings or they died homeless paupers. Either race is a genetic experiment or it's a ransacked Section 8. Either your mother is a nigga or she's a half-white nigga. Either humans use their claws or humans are consumed. Either history stutters or history was born mute. Either paradise is a congress of hoes or hell's rivers have no mouths. Either someone holds a mirror or someone else has no reflection. Either they means all of them there and we means all of us here. Either this is a free country or the dream is wildly overpriced. Either hoard is fear misspelled or lack is hoard synonym. Either broke men leave nothing or nothing breaks death's weight. Either you wail enough into space and it is empty breath inside an urn, or it is hurricane to dust. The board's deconstructed spectacle before. It's on 53 in my version. I think your version's slightly different. Before.
In societies where modern conditions of production prevail, life is presented as an immense accumulation of spectacles. Everything that was directly lived has receded into a representation. The images detached from every aspect of life merge into a common stream in which the unity of that life can no longer be recovered.
Modern conditions
views of reality
present immense spectacles.
into a new unity as a
In this fragmented
that
world,
can only be looked at.
even
The
deceivers
specialization
are
of
deceived.
images of The world
Society's
has culminated
delusion
a world
achieves
of
nothing but
automatized
universal
energy, where
separation.
even the deceivers are deceived.
People
The
understood
spectacle
as
is
mere
a concrete
product or
inversion of
decoration.
life, an autonomous
The heart
movement in the non-living.
of
The
presence
spectacle presents itself
split
simultaneously
into
as society
reality
itself,
and
as
image.
a part of society, and as a means of unification.
On making an essential nigga for the stockholders. Make famous at most 2 of any of these niggas. Nigga ain't got shit, nigga. Think they ain't shit, nigga. Circle jerk eye jizz, nigga. Jeans slung low, nigga. Bespoke ass, nigga. Stellar CV, nigga. Made for TV, nigga. Ham hock pot licker, nigga. Grease that scalp, nigga. Pimp that pain, nigga. Ain't I pretty, nigga? Wave cap board brush, nigga. Milk and toast, milk toast, nigga. Got invited and I went, nigga. Kingmaker led, nigga. Traffic signal trigger, nigga. On the map, nigga. GPS to the grave, nigga. 30 in a crown now, nigga. Captain Sunk can't swim, nigga. Don't make no waves, nigga. Sharks worse than whips, nigga. Cotton gin boom, nigga. Wait for the gavel, nigga. Going once, going twice. Sold to the highest bidder, nigga. Massa show good to me, nigga. Ampersand and asterisk, nigga. Spade, hoe, and dibber, nigga. Hard red winter, nigga. Phenom, funambulist, nigga. Credit to the race, nigga. Please, sir, call me nigga, nigga. Spring white soft baked, nigga. Somebody gotta get it, nigga. If not me, then who, nigga? Now you see me, nigga. Now you don't, nigga. What's your name, nigga? Should I know your name, nigga? Aren't you that other nigga, nigga? You look like that other nigga, nigga. Nobody told you, nigga? Your revision history, nigga. Use a rip page, nigga. Use a dog ear, nigga. Use a footnote, nigga. Use a if then, nigga. If that, nigga. If that. To tell you 3 things on my mind is to tell you about quarantine and temperance. A white mentor who I once liked said, "Good you have 4 kids, you can spare one." According to Oxford English Dictionary, the verb spare means afford to give up, to sacrifice, like time. How we lose ourselves in infinite scroll, lost lifetimes because noon is conceptual, no rhythms. Loss is why casinos have no clocks or windows. Time is never up in isolation. The evening news clips humpbacks harmonizing. Did you know whale speak sounds like a monastic chant, like a morning song? And if whales are mourning, who soothes them? Certainly not the lantern nymphs. They're busy eating fruit trees, grapevines, and who will ready Sky Daddy's altar come Armageddon? Bars been closed for a year. Sober sinners, the whole of us, ready to erupt, won't be redeemed from a dry land. The devegetated plain on YouTube, the place I go to be outside, shows beasts running aimlessly. Laminated ferns and extruded wood waste inside zoo enclosures where the hippos are trying unsuccessfully to drown themselves. Too thick-skinned, too effective at float, too able to survive. I relate. Read The 4 Horsemen soon come after wrangling sick wheat. Any moment now you'll see Sky Daddy is waiting to unleash. She waiting on one animal to do one more goddamn thing to some animal who has had it up to waiting. A person I've never met explains things I already know. Waiting, I give doubt vouchers until benefit bursts and pregnant scrolls unseal, and goddamn the language of sparing. I have none to spare. I'm cash poor when it comes to birth. My riches, a wombless sill with 7 trumpets and a name holding back 4 winds, waiting and ready to blow. His eye on the sparrow. I guess Black people can write about flowers at a time like this, since every poem turns on itself. Starts one way to end another. We see it in nature too, how seed turns to leaf regardless of its earth, or the thought inside my head blossoms into a hyacinth with as sweet a scent. Even in dreams, thought's closest cousin I often see, Mamie Till. She walks the church's aisle toward her son's body while wisteria bloats the casket's brim and papered bougainvillea bracts emerge from where his eye once was. An entire garden from the nutrients of once human, and not to mention all those awed birds that circle Emmett's pillowed corpse. So many in the tabernacle, not predators of the fleshly bloom or harbingers of his God's descent, not refugees fleeing his exilic body, but eternity's messengers. You see, we who pull breath confuse death's irony. Whoever dies and is remembered stays living. Haunting axioms. I've never read this in person, actually. Some ghosts don't know they're dead. This is also true of the living. Some ghosts feel trapped on earth. This is also true of the living. Some ghosts reenact their past. This is also true of the living. Some ghosts regret what's behind. This is also true for some living. Some ghosts have not earned rest. This is also true for some living. Some ghosts never seem to forget. This is not quite true for the living. Some ghosts return to their wound. This is always true of the living. December After Heart by Eileen Miles. Once, when I was in space spiraling toward galactic oblivion, I set up a Christmas tree in the season of greeting and return, right there in the family room. I covered that year's arboreal sacrifice in multi-ethnic lights as a reminder that dark relief comes in every hue. Carolers sang outside my window hymns I didn't know I memorized until I found myself mouthing the lyrics with precision. Oh, come all ye faithful, oh, holy night. Inside, children passed pleasures on heirloom dishes as I excavated a moldy box in search of the white angel holding a star that with my brown Sharpie I suffused into a black angel holding a star. I ascended a step stool to crown that daft Fraser while praying a celestial petition I knew if granted would level me. Bring them back, plastic nebulae of niggardly light. Return, who's loved me worst. Two more poems, and then we'll get into Q&A. Goodnight, Gibbous Moon, a wake-up story. You may recall the rhythm of this. You've all heard this story before. Just a different way, I think. In the great bleak room, there was a telephone and a big buffoon and a picture of a sheep shooting up the moon. And there were 3 heels of bread asleep on the bed and a half-plunged needle and a flower-coated weevil and past-due tolls and attic holes, and a storm and a funnel and a wind-blown tunnel, and a bat and a shove and the question of love, and a comb of kinked hair and a frayed wicker chair, and the slow, steady crush of all the elders insisting I hush. Good night, Fog Room. Good night, Gibbous Moon. Good night, heels of bread. Good night, family bread. Good night, needle. Good night, weevil. Good night, late toll. Good night, roof hole. Good night, storm funnel. Good night, wind tunnel. Good night, fierce shove. Good night, unlove. Good night, kinked hair. Good night, wicker chair. Good night, steadied crush. And good night to the elders all whispering, hush. Good night, bat savior. Good night, truth or dare. Good night, chaos everywhere. Last poem.
Sorry, I just hit that mic.
That's okay. If my late grandmother were Gertrude Stein. So I'm gonna give you some background on this poem. My grandmother migrated up to the north during the Great Migration. My grandfather, her lover, migrated to the United States from Sicily, from Montelepre, Sicily in 1911. He was born in 1893, migrated in 1911. She came up north to Newark, New Jersey. They met at a bar, had a decades-long relationship that produced my mother. They were not married because they could not be married because he was already married. And he had 3 children, which I'm estranged from that side of my family. I don't know any of them, mostly because of race issues. And the fact that I think, my mom's birth is a symbol of somebody else's pain. If my late grandmother were Gertrude Stein. 1. Southern migration. Leech, broke speech, leaf ain't pruning, pot lay, lie, hair straight off, arrowed branch and horse joint, elbow ash, roe fish, roe dog, slow milk pig, blue water sister, hogs like willow. Wheat crow, wheat cow, soul bug, soul narrow, inches away, over the bridge, back that way, fur needles and coal, black hole, black out, black feet, blame, long way still, not there, here, same, 2, feed the soul. Old crow, liquor, drink, drunk, girdle, grits, grit, tea, get, shave, shook, shuck, shit, flour, lard and swallow, hard edge, chew, chip, tooth, bite, tool, chip, bite, bloat, blight, seat, blight, sit, TB, light, city, downtown, dim, slight, dark, old ark, new work, nork. Lark fed, cornbread, bed, featherback, Sunday shack, church fat, grease glove, dust rub, cheap heeled shoe, window seat, mirror, eye, window, when though, wind blow, November, December, no cinder, no slumber, no summer, branched, blanched, fried, freed, fly, want, what, graves want. 3, miscegenation. Good, smooth, curly-haired baby, rockabye my baby mama, rockabye that baby. Wrestle the earth, baby, no dirt, shine neck, porcelain, tin, tarnish, powder, milk, pout her, milk, powder, silk, inheritance. Front the wash tub, top the bed, bin, leaky numbers, run on. Red fever holds your palms, sweat it out. Hot, heat the rest, pretty melt that wax wide flower, Ellis Island, daddy, old daddy's bar, band. Mongrel, come now. Little bones bend, old crack, creep, crank, crick, curly Q, fuck them, then fuck them. You hear me? Walk through, good-haired baby. Half of you belong. 4, Gertrude Stein. Who? Bill's Mount. Picasso, who? Matisse, who? Mortgage. No currency, canvas, paintbrushes, stroke, bridge, brittle, blend, 10 miles they break, 10 miles they break, we broke. No brick, widgets in the envelope, no railroad, green agriculture, pea snap, earth under nail, spine and stilt, woman roach kill, heel, woman roaches in the crawl, woman creep, keep 5th grade, everywhere, where, everywhere, we're everywhere, anyhow. We sacrifice and hammer, they sacrifice the hammer, never. Axe and hatchet make callous, hard hand, prison, pen, privilege, pin, bar, thorn, pin, pine, cross, crown. Wait. Iron is harder. Chicken fat can is full of spark kill, or spark coal, or spark cull. Spark cull, ho. Heave, ho, heave, holy, heavy, light's genius. That is that, Gertrude. Who? Thank you so much for listening. I wanna, thank you for hearing and listening and witnessing and holding space with me. I want to open it up for any questions you all might have. Any questions at all? It doesn't have to be about the book. It could be about poetry. It could be about process. It could be about life. I give great advice.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
I noticed there are many Gothic themes in this book, and the same is true of the first book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obsessed with the Gothic. I'm working on my first poetry collection. How do you maintain a distance from the Gothic and also maintain like your sense of self? Because for me, like my poems tend to go towards the dark, like you know, but I'm not. My personality is not like that. What's like been your like self-care regimen as you focus on like darker topics? Darker being like serious.
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I'm hearing in that question is, how do you stay light when you write so dark?
Yeah.
That's a question for the ages. And I think for me, it's taken practice. So I write slowly too. So because I write on the heavier side, I take my time with it, and I don't try to produce one thing after the other. So I let things sit for a while, and as I'm letting them sit, I go on with life. and I try and experience the goodness that life, because I do believe that there's goodness out there. Actually, I've seen it, I've experienced it, I've held it, I've touched it, I've smelled it. And so I try to experience life in the intervals between the writing so that I don't get sucked into the black hole of it all, right? Because when I first started writing, I was actually writing a lot about black holes, because I find them to be so intriguing, but I didn't recognize what my brain was trying to do. It was trying to keep me from the event horizon. It was like, okay, here's what happens at the event horizon of a black hole. You will get sucked in. So you stay away from it. And so that's what I do. Like, I observe the event horizon, I see it, but I stay away. I try and stay away so I don't get sucked into it. I don't believe that the artist has to be their art. I believe that you live a life in which you find beauty, you curate beauty, you curate pain, and you talk through terrible things and beautiful things at the same time. But I try to stay away from the darkness. And a lot of that is that it helps me if I think of it as going into my imagination. So some of it requires dissociation, which is not a healthy thing to live with on a regular basis. But it is helpful when you're trying to write so that you can see the person or the I that's in the poem, the speaker that's in the poem, you can see them as separate from yourself, which is why in poetry it's so interesting. So when you're writing nonfiction, everybody pretty much knows it's about you. They just assume that it's about you. But when, it's nonfiction, it should roughly be about you. But when you're writing poetry, you always have the back door. You can always say, that's the speaker. And so that's what helps to keep me healthy, is thinking about it. Oh, that's the speaker of the poem. They've had their own experiences, and they're narrating it in the way that makes sense for them so that they can live. So there's some degree of dissociation. But I knew early on that I was really interested in these ideas of, if I had to classify my work, it's somewhere along, it's in the school of Flannery. Like, I like dark domestica. I really do. I find it to be interesting. And I find that you can kind of dredge the bottom to find interesting things, nuanced things about people's lives, your own life, when you hold light with darkness. I tend to go a little bit dark though, but I like it there. I just don't stay there. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Any other questions? Yeah, Wes. First of all, thank you for reading. Let's give it up for Wes, y'all. I think that it's a little bit of what we were talking about earlier. I think that any time that you turn your attention inward, and this is not, I recognize there's this rhetoric of self-care right now. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when your primary interest is all turned inward, about how to meet your own needs and what one has to do to meet their own needs. I do feel that it leads to this kind of debased state of only considering oneself. And when you are so consumed with ideas of commodity, like, it's interesting, I go on Instagram and I just see, I know there's beautiful pictures and all that stuff, but I also just see how people are allowing themselves to turn into a commodity, I'm not just talking about the people who monetize their sites, I mean just turning into an avatar of one's life to some degree, so that for the sake of being liked or for the sake of other people's pleasure. And that's the spectacle, right? At the very essence of the spectacle, you think about circus acts from, as far back as when the circus started. The idea is that you spectacularize your life, I'm thinking about sideshows right now, you spectacularize some part of your life for other people's pleasure. And when I was writing Brookline Circus, I implicated myself because I recognized I was doing that. And because you can't really get away from it, like you can call it out as a thing that happens, but it's very difficult to get away from it. So that's really, as I was sort of in the middle of writing the book when I realized I was like, I need something to even out Adam Smith's perspective, so let's bring in a Marxist. Guy Debord is a Marxist. And then I wanted to think about, you've got capitalism, height of capitalism with Adam Smith, and then you have this kind of fringe group of libertarian Marxists with Guy Debord as situationists. And both have theories and both have posits, they both posit worldviews. And my thought is, what happens in the space between, the lived space, the personal space of those theories? And what I was finding out, like, unfortunately, indicting myself, is that we allow ourselves to become spectacles for the sake of self-interest, for the sake of being relevant. It's like the pursuit of relevance. Self-interest leads to the pursuit of relevance, and the pursuit of relevance leads to the spectacle, I think, in my view. Thank you for that question. Any other questions? Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, I'm wondering how you think about sharing your work with other people, like and how you found folks who gave the most valuable feedback on your work over time, kind of how that process works for you, like writing in solitude, and then how you decide when to share.
That's a great question. It depends on the poem. Sometimes I'll write something and I'm like, I want to share this and see, because you write and you realize something's not quite right, or something is really right. Something's you're cooking, you know. So you want to get someone else's perspective. And I have like this small circle, and it's very small. It's probably like 2 people. He's one of them. He's actually one of my readers. In the literal sense, as you can see, but also he's an early reader for me. And it helps me to get a pulse point. I don't always see what I'm doing. I think some part of art is mystifying to even the artist. So I don't always see what I'm doing, but it helps to have just a small crew of people who I ask, and I use my gut. It's my gut feels, you know what I mean? Like, if I know my friends are really busy, I don't ask, and I'll just wait, or I'll just figure it out myself. But it helps to have other people hold up a mirror so you can see exactly what you're doing. And those have shifted, like that crew of people that I trust with my work, it shifts. And it's, again, it's a very small crew. It shifts, but when I was in grad school, it's obviously my professors. But as I moved on, it just became just this small group of friends whose words I trust and who get my heart, understand like the essence of what I'm trying to do. Which I always think is like the first question you ask when someone shares writing with you. What do you want to achieve? What do you want the poem? How do you want the poem? How do you want this piece of work to move? And then once someone can answer that question, then you can give eyes in an appropriate way rather than just put a comma here or put a period there. You can really lend some very useful feedback. But again, it's just gut. I just go with my gut. Thank you for asking that question. Any other questions? Yeah.
I was curious, apart from Adam Smith and his, if you have any other theory influences in your writing, so like economics-wise?
Relating to economics only, or just?
Yeah, as a former economics student.
Yeah, okay, here's my thing. I love theory, and I recognize my limits of understanding theory, because I find theory to be very dense, right? And so what I try and do, I set it out as a challenge for myself, is to read theory and then try and figure out what I think they're saying. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever read Arthur Schopenhauer. It's like, he's such a grumpy cat. He was such a grumpy cat. He was so grumpy, just complete misanthrope. But I love his work. I'm so happy to see you. But I love his work, right? And so, because I think he actually had valuable and useful things to say in his work. And one of the things he talks about is, you don't read in order to play back what you've read. You read in order to let it sit for a while and see what comes up from what you read. And that's what I do with theorists. So some of the other theorists I love Baudrillard. I am absolutely positively in some sort of ghost relationship with Ludwig Wittgenstein. He's a philosopher. I just freaking love Ludwig Wittgenstein. Here's why I get the opportunity to say this, because I love him so much. Okay, here's the thing about him. He was probably a misogynist in the time that he was alive. You know, Schopenhauer was a racist, just flat out. He wrote it in his work. But I still like some of the stuff that he said. Like, I can put that aside and be like, he still is dropping some bars on this other stuff, even though his thinking is flawed. But with Wittgenstein, the thing I liked about him is that he studied with Bertrand Russell in his early career when he was a young philosopher in school. And he came out with the Tractatus. And in the Tractatus, he talks about ideas of language, how we imbue meaning into language. And it was more fixed. It was like, well, it's a table because we call it a table and it serves a function as a table. And then some years later in Philosophical Investigations, it was published posthumously because he had a short life. I think it was in the 50s, maybe 53. And he talked about this other idea about language and that there was some plasticity with language. Meaning could shift and it could change. And I like that. Like, I like the idea of someone coming forward and saying, I thought that then, I think this now. Because we're changeable beings, we're malleable. We can, at least I would like to hope so, like as we grow, our ideas and our opinions might change and shift. And so he, for me, is symbolic of that malleability of thinking and plasticity of thinking and being flexible and not being afraid to admit that you think differently now than you did then. And so that kind of guides my work too, because I like to think that I can look back in time and say, I feel differently about this thing now than I did then. And that's what I was trying to get to in Bread and Circus, like that idea that I'm not stuck there, I feel differently about it now, it's not the same thing. So those are just a few. I also love Heidegger, I love Derrida, very, very much. And who's that cat that we were reading the other day? Oh, his name's escaping me. It's M, begins with an M. Oh, forget it. Yeah, we were talking about him the other day. His name is like gone out the window. Okay. But yeah, I love philosophy and I love theory, but mostly I love what I understand of it, right? I don't commit to knowing all of it and backwards and forwards. I just understand what I understand and try and mix it into my work as much as possible because it shapes the way I think. I would like to think it does anyway, for the better. Did that answer your question? Thank you for that question. Any others? We've got 1 minute left. Yeah.
I wanted to know, sort of related to Lisa Cook and how she went to bed, if that was something that mattered to you, or just that sort of representation of like Black women in financial matters in econ, like I think of like the City Collective. I know what you're talking about is a lot more than representation, but kind of what those things would have been.
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I think one of the things it means beyond representation is that it creates this idea of nuance, right? And so it does away with that flattening, how we often get flattened and essentialized. Women generally do, Black women especially. And I'm constantly thinking about that beyond representation, but like, you know, and guess what? I can also do this. And it's not a flex, right? It's just the idea that I'm trying to be my full self on the page. And I've been influenced by things beyond just poetry. And how do you pull in the things that influence you, that make you think, whatever they are, whether it's like anatomy, biology, chemistry, astrophysics, how do you pull these things into the poem? Because the poem is the space for those types of explorations. And so I care about that because it does away with the essentializing nature that often happens, how identities often get flattened. And I obviously on making an essential nigga, I'm not interested in that. Like, I'm interested in fullness rather than flattening. So it does mean a lot to me, so thank you for saying that. Thank you. Beyond representation. Thank you, Silas.
Thank you.
happy to sign both.